everyone, and welcome to the Podcast by Army podcast, where we talk about BTS, Army, fandom, and research. We are your co-hosts, Dr. Kate Ringland and
Jhertau Her, a university researcher.
this is our revamped, brand new season 2, episode 0. Here we are.
Woo! We totally didn't have to re-record this in light of recent events,
No,
and definitely not. I have no idea what you're talking about at all. That is so interesting. But yeah, so we're back. We're gonna talk about a couple of things. Set the stage for season 2. Because season 2 was supposed to be about having guests who are armies.
we were gonna have a whole yay! Here's our happy, wonderful, diverse, expansive community of
Yeah, we
Army.
had a good lineup of people,
We
pretty
did.
solid.
Yep.
People who have been armies for a long time, have been involved in the community. But, we just don't agree with them on a lot of things anymore. So we would rather just not post those episodes.
Unfortunately,
We said some baller things in them.
I know. I'm really actually super disappointed by everything and everyone.
Yes. They could have just been better people, but didn't happen. Really, for this season, instead of having guest episodes, we're gonna do a bunch of topics and talk about the army community at large. And we're also going to center a lot of that conversation around Palestine and the
Yep.
liberation of Palestine.
Yep.
Because Palestinians should have complete and total control over their liberation.
That is correct.
It's almost like people who are trying to liberate, you should support them and what they're trying
Almost
to
like,
do.
instead
Like
of, I don't
maybe
know. Mhm.
criticizing them,
Mhm.
saying that
Undermining them.
protest doesn't work. Interesting.
Yeah.
How has change ever happened in the world ever? That's so interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, so here we are.
Here we are. Army Twitter is a mess. And I really think, honestly, that what's happened with Palestine and us fighting for the liberation of Palestine, it really has pulled the rug under a lot of people who've had this false idea of Army as a community being all prim and perfect and wonderful and happy.
Yeah, and just I feel like there was a lot of people, at least that sense I get, is there's been a lot of people who celebrated and have been celebrating Army, especially post-COVID and post Black Lives Matter, like celebrating Army as this very activist space where people are able to make a difference in the world and touting our charity work and all this stuff. And I feel like a little bit the last several months even have pulled back the curtain a little bit and shown how for many people that was fairly performative. And so we're going to unpack that this season and kind of work with some of this kind of new community interactions and things that we've been personally having, especially in the last few weeks. It's been great.
Yes. In the last couple weeks, I have lost more followers and more friends than I ever have on Army Twitter for any opinion I've ever had. So strange. I've had
It's
way more controversial opinions.
serious. It's wild out there. I've had friends that I've been moots with since my baby army days, and we are now no longer connected on Twitter. And it baffles me. So here we are. We're going to unpack these feelings and dig into a lot of the both contemporary things, but also the historical, I don't know, happenings around why the community is the way it is, and then centering all that around current events with Palestine.
Yes. And I don't know, we're still talking about BTS on this podcast
Mhm.
because this is a BTS podcast, but we're also researchers, we're also academics, and there's a lot of things we want to talk about in tandem with BTS and Palestine.
And especially as it pertains to the community that has been built around BTS, which includes us as these academic researchers and as people who do this activist work. And we have a huge community around us, despite all the drama and the defriending that has been going on. There's a lot of people that are doing really good work, and so we want to talk about that and contextualize some of
I
that.
think one of the first ways we can talk about that is how we were actually planning on inviting a prominent Palestinian army who has been doing a
Mhm,
lot of the organizing work for Army for Palestine onto the podcast to just no pressure, just like asking if she would like to speak. And especially because as Kate and I, we were connected to university and academia, and there's like avenues to do activism and talk about Palestine. But
mhm.
before we could even contact her, account got suspended. I wonder why.
I I don't wonder why, actually. I know exactly why it
Yeah, we
happened.
know
All the racism and horrible things that have just been spewing from various accounts before and after has just been atrocious. I am embarrassed by the things that people at big accounts have been posting. It's embarrassing and horrifying.
Yeah, them trying to quote unquote TL cleanse
God.
while we're trying to talk about Palestine,
Yeah.
actually ridiculous.
Even the use of the word cleanse here is just so inappropriate, actually inappropriate. And it's really disheartening and really frustrating. And I don't know. I don't know what happens next, but I'm going to keep using this platform to talk about it and see who's going to listen.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to do that honestly, because I remember we were feeling nervous to talk about it just because of
Yeah.
the space at the university has been really
Yeah.
weird.
The
Be
censoring going on here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can speak like as just as a student, as someone who's like a part of student government as well. There's a lot of weird energy happen. They're not directly saying don't talk about it, but they don't want you to talk about it. And every
Yeah.
time the student group on campus who organizes around Palestine, whenever they do something, it's always met with increased policing, increased like negative framing of what
Yeah.
they're fighting for. For example, our student for Justice for Palestine group on campus, they closed the entrance to campus, the main entrance to campus, as a way to like host workshops about Palestine at the base of campus, talk about Palestine. And it was really big. There's a lot of people. And the university didn't like that they did that. So now every time they've organized something after that, and that all school email that went out about that, now there's a lot of hesitancy to do that, especially how university has increased having police present. If you walk around these areas, increasingly police officers, both dressed in uniform and in casual clothing, and with earpieces around these areas, it's increasing of policing and increasing of police presence. And that very much is a way to intimidate students and trying to intimidate people who are fighting for the liberation of Palestine. And it's so interesting because I remember I talked about like student government on Twitter and talked about being an American and being a student at a university who's working to write resolutions as a student government, to write different statements as a student government in support of Palestine. And someone had replied to me and said, "Oh, you're an American and you're at university. This doesn't concern you. You're an American. Why would this concern you? Why are you worried about what's happening somewhere else in the world as a university student in America?" And I just muted them and then blocked them eventually because it's so disingenuous to say that, especially to me. This person was someone who's following me, by the way. And I have spoken multiple times being like the child of a colonized people and how that has affected me throughout my life. And this person comes in like, "Why do you care? It doesn't concern you. It doesn't matter to you." Actually, it does, because my tax money goes to the US government that's actively funding the harm and the genocide in Palestine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, of all the countries, being in the US is actually one of the worst offenders because we're like out there just being awful. I think of all the people that should be speaking up, it should be US citizens and people from the US.
I genuinely don't know what they were trying to do with that. It feels ridiculous to me because it's like that one quote where it's, "I don't know how to explain to you that you should care about people." And I feel that constantly now on Army Twitter. I feel like any illusion I've had previously about like a community or like a collective community, something that's like strong in one identity, like any idea I've had of that is completely shattered now. I do not feel any
Yeah.
sense of that anymore.
I feel like maybe this is me being I'm a very okay, I'll be real. I'm a very optimistic person. I
Let
recognize
Kate
that about
be nuanced. 2024, okay?
me. No, but like what I feel is we had a community before. There were problems with it. Clearly, these have been surfaced now. But I feel like what we're going through right now is a fracturing and a reconfiguration, if you will. And I feel like what is going to probably maybe happen, depending on if the platform works the way it's supposed to or not, which is a whole nother thing. I think we're going to reconfigure and get a community identity back again, but it's going to look different. It's going to have different people in it. A lot of the accounts right now that we're fighting with are going to go be themselves somewhere else, do their thing, and we're going to reconfigure as our community over here. And I think that's just going to be part of the growth and change of what's happening on Twitter, at least. And I think that's what's happening, and it sucks being right in the middle of it, right? It sucks being in this weird liminal space between communities, and people are fighting and being really atrociously awful to each other. And it's really disheartening to see how it's falling apart. But I am hopeful that from the ashes, we will have a new sense of community. And what that looks like, I have absolutely no idea right now, but I do think that it'll come back again.
Honestly, mad respect to you for being optimistic. Over here, I'm gonna be pessimistic about it because I really feel this always happen. We're like a big account, they get canceled or whatever, and then they're gone, and it doesn't affect the community at all. The community just changes constantly.
Yeah.
But I feel like what has happened now is a lot of so-called pillars, ideological pillars of the community have now been dismantled. So there's things like obviously supporting BTS's music, buying albums. We're boycotting now, girly, because us buying those things, it does help BTS. It does fight for a lot of causes we care about, like the music industry and pushing BTS in predominantly white global music industry that does not want them to be a part of it. But at the same time, us buying those albums, buying that music, streaming that music, what it does is it contributes to the financial gains and giving Zionists the platform to spread propaganda, which is a part of the Zionist colonial project. That's
Yeah.
the whole thing. One of the biggest points about Zionism is Zionists holding positions of power and using those positions of power to spread propaganda. It's legitimately a point of the Zionist colonial project to do. And Scooter Braun, as a Zionist, is doing that. And there's no way for us to dismantle his position of power without withholding the financial support that we give to the company.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating, especially as someone who really believes in the power of buying music
Yeah.
and engaging with music. It is really hard because I'm literally a part of a funding fan base. Listeners know this. We've talked about this before.
Mhm.
So I am one of the people who really believes in buying music. I literally organize around it because I believe in it so much. But I can't care about it anymore because we have to center Palestine. We have to center what Palestinian people are going through. And in order to do that, we must dismantle the power the Zionists have. Honestly, it's really sucky out here. I really wish I could just have my little cute things and hang out.
Yeah. I'll say that the kind of the rhetoric that people are using around how those who are choosing to boycott are somehow ruining this for BTS or making BTS victims in this. And I just like the counterpoint here is that it's not the boycotters that are doing this. It's the people that are choosing colonialism. It's the people that are choosing these positions of oppression and leveraging them for their own gain. It's the people who are actively being Zionist out loud, like just out publicly putting it in our faces while we're saying that we don't want this anymore. Those are the people that we should be mad at right now, and not the people who are trying to make a difference and change the world. I get super frustrated because there's a lot of anger being directed in unproductive ways right now. And if we actually refocused that energy and turned the narrative around, we could actually maybe do something. But like right now, people are just hurting and they're hurting each other. And yes, BTS is in the crosshairs right now because of all this mess. And just imagine if we could get to the other side of all this and be in a place where we could get back to just celebrating our community and each other. Wouldn't that be nice?
That honestly would be. Because genuinely, the problem okay, let me back up really quick. Army for Palestine, one of the main groups of armies organizing around Palestine right now, and actually it's run by Palestinian armies, FYI. They are not just random people. They're Palestinian people whose families are directly affected by what's happening right now. Just FYI for anyone who doesn't believe that for some reason. You weirdo. Like, that's a weird thing to think, honest to God. Just weird. Okay. It's Army for Palestine run by Palestinians. Okay. Army for Palestine, they did not even make a comment about any of the Hybe boycotting. Because again, it's not about BTS, not about Hybe. Okay. It's about focusing on Palestine and what Palestinian people are going through, right? The first initial campaigns that Army for Palestine ran were about donating for Care for Gaza, donating to the PCRF, which is the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, and donating directly to Palestinians and Gazans who are being affected right now, right? You can look back at their account, look at all the receipts, look at people who've replied to them, all who have added them. All those campaigns have been about donating money to those types of foundations and places, or directly contacting government representatives, or directly contacting Hybe, the company, about Scooter Braun, who is a Zionist, who uses his platform to promote Zionist propaganda. Okay. They did not say anything about Hybe until now with the truck and with a bunch of other things because they have been centering Palestine. And the only reason I'm talking about it now is because Scooter Braun is intentionally egging on people. That is the whole thing. Army for Palestine did not want to make any comments about Hybe because it's not about BTS, it's not about Hybe. But once again, we are here and we have to be here. Because what's funny to me is that for so many months, the armies who were like against the Palestinian armies who were organizing, they were talking about, oh, this is gonna hurt the BTS members. You shouldn't do this, blah 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 blah. Oh, and then they're also like at the simultaneously they're demanding the Army for Palestine say something about Hybe and BTS. They're demanding that they say something, and then the moment that they say something, then all those armies get mad and they start reporting the admin for the Army for Palestine account. They start reporting Army for Palestine themselves, and they also start reporting Care for Gaza, which is an
Which is terrible. The second that started happening, I speechless, actually speechless. Anyway, I just had to say that. I just when that turn happened in this whole episode, y'all, what are we doing? What are we doing?
there's a level of low, and they went lower.
Yeah.
I don't know how to tell you that you're a bad person. I'm gonna tell you that you're a bad person if you report the account for a group that directly buys food and aid and actual items people need in a place that is actively being killed and genocided. You're a bad person. Straight up.
This has got nothing to do with BTS or K-pop or whatever stupid drama you're worrying about on the timeline. This is real. And I just can't, I'm so horrified by people.
You cannot justify that in any type of capacity. Because the reason they reported Care for Gaza is Care for Gaza that has a lot of army followers. You want to know the reason why? Because Army for Palestine and Learn to Liberate, which is another account that's also run by armies. That is, it's not directly army related, but it's run by armies. And in those two accounts, they helped promote Care for Gaza and help Care for Gaza gain more followers so that way more people could see it and donate to it. This is an example of armies using their platform to uplift a really good cause, right?
Yeah.
And then people took that and they're like, oh, so Care for Gaza is related to these sabotagers, quote unquote, these people sabotaging BTS, so we need to report them. And you have number one, Not interactive anything Army for Palestine related or Learn to Liberate related. Number 2 are just like, you cannot read for what Care for Gaza on the actual account says, but it's run by actual Palestinian people. And the money that's being donated is to an actual Palestinian man who is on the ground in Palestine right now. That's the whole thing. So I'm not sure where things are disconnecting and not making sense.
So we're gonna unpack all this in season 2.
Yeah, in season 2. So fun.
We're ready.
Initially, the first couple episodes we're gonna release were pre-release episodes. So this is things like Hobie's birthday, Yoongi's
Mhm.
birthday, and then 2 interviews from people who are pro-Palestinian that we want to speak with. Everyone else that we have scrapped episodes from, we do not agree with their perspectives or their point of views. You don't know who they are, listeners, but if they ever choose to out themselves on Twitter or anywhere else, just know that we do not agree with their perspectives or point of views
Yep.
because we stand by Palestinian people. It's not that hard. It's not that
Yeah.
hard. Just FYI, not that difficult to not speak over them. Really not. But yeah, that's about it for this episode 0. Just a short episode telling you what season 2 is going to be about. Thank you so much for listening. Kate, any final thoughts?
Yeah, buckle in. Let's go. This is gonna be a ride and a half. I'm ready.
Yes, we are also no longer promoting streaming at the end of these episodes. Instead, we're going to be promoting a list of resources at the bottom. So we talked about it in our Palestine episode, but we'll just be
Yeah.
adding that onto
Plug
our
for our
episodes.
Palestine episode if you haven't listened to it yet.
Plug for that, our active resistance. Please
Yeah.
listen to that. That was interesting to make. We've gotten a lot of DMs about that one.
Yeah, I'm glad that seems to have resonated with people, and it will be useful for you to listen to that before you start season 2. So go listen to that now.
Yep. Have fun listening to that. All right. That is all some of my final thoughts. I really look forward to season 2. I think we're going to talk about things that really matter to us. I think the season 2 we planned previously, it did speak to us in some ways of being like an archive or a way to capture the perspectives of armies. But I think now the season 2 we have planned really hits on what Kate and I really care about for
Yeah.
Army and really care about just in the community wise. So I really look forward to everyone listening and seeing all of that. And as always, liberate and free Palestine. Palestine will be free in our lifetime. That's the thing. That's the thing. People are like, oh, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. Girl, I'm going to make sure it happens. That's the thing. We should just breathe it and it happens and it exists. That is the point of liberation. That's the point. Okay, Slay. Have a good day, everyone. Check out the resources in the description below. And I will see you in season 2. Bye.
Bye.